happening.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
We start our county board meeting with public comment period. We allow 10 minutes and 2 minutes per speaker. So if there's anyone in the audience or who is attending this meeting over the internet and you would like to make a public comment, if you're here in the room, please step forward and state your name and address. Or if you're on the internet, please unmute yourself and catch our attention.
No. Hi.
Okay, so Ms. Jacobs, is it all right if I let Ms. Jacobs go ahead? Okay, and you'll be next. All right, please proceed. Mary Jacobs on the internet?
Seeing if she's connected.
Maybe that's it. Okay, please proceed.
Hello, my name is Carl Burbrick. I am a member of the Hiawatha Trout Unlimited Board, and I'm also the editor of the Southeast Minnesota TU hotline that gets sent out monthly. And I'm here to talk about and inform the board about the fish kill that happened at the end of last month. And I have a map that I'd like to hand out to the members here indicating where the stream is. This was on Rush Creek. And I heard about this, I believe it was on Tuesday, the 26th of July. And it was discovered and reported on Monday, the 25th of July. And so the DNR, the PCA, and the Department of Agriculture investigated on Tuesday, July 26th. And this was downstream of County Road 29, south of Lewiston, and which is just north of I-90. And so then on Wednesday morning, I decided to go out there and investigate. And I took pictures that I took.
We should have copies for
everybody.
and for the
Press.
and
Yeah.
public.
Anyway, so I walked downstream 3/4 of a mile, and I took pictures, and I counted about approximately 11 dead fish at that time. And the stream was very cloudy. I could not see down into the water. And then later I drove down to Enterprise, which is downstream, and it's directly above the I-90 bridge. And I took more pictures. And this was 2.3 miles above the County Road 29 bridge. And so there were lots of dead fish down there. Anyways, conclusions. The DNR says that this was not a natural occurrence. And it was probably precipitated by the large forecasted rain event that occurred on Saturday, the July 23rd. And my pictures have been published by KARE 11 News. And it's also on the NPR News website and many other internet things. Also on.
Mr. Burbick, I'm sorry you have hit your 2-minute limit. Could you wrap up in a sentence?
Okay.
Thanks.
Anyway, so my observations were on that Wednesday was that there was a rain event just that early morning, and the stream was all cloudy. However, if you look at the map, there's a little tributary coming in. That was clear. And also downstream at the county, at the Enterprise, the stream was clear. So obviously, what's happening on the stream where the fish kill is has lots of sediment easily coming into the stream. Something's wrong.
Thanks.
That's it.
Also, for the record,
Any questions?
could you give us your address?
My address is 1203 19th Avenue Northeast, Rochester, Minnesota.
Thanks a lot. During our public comment period, we do not interact with the public, so thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else in the audience?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I'm Jeff Broberg. It's good to see all of you. I'm reside at 11596 Persons Drive, St. Charles. I'm in Elba Township. I'm a mile and a half from the county line. I drove across the county today, and it's a beautiful place. It really is magnificent. We have nice crops, nice land, nice landowners. But the thing that connects us all is in trouble. It's the water. I have a map I want to pass out too, and I have 8 copies here. And what I want, in just a really short time, we've had 3 fish kills within 5 miles of Lewiston in the last 6 years. They all have the same set of causes. They're predictable. We've seen them before. It starts with second or third cutting hay, manure application. At the same time, they're spraying exceedingly toxic herbicides on the surrounding corn, an intense rain event during warm weather when the streams are already clean. I'm exceedingly disappointed in the state response to this because they keep trying to target an individual. This is a systems problem and a failure of risk management. When we know these things and heavy rain is predicted, the riparian landowners should be made aware of the risks. If they light the fuse and they hurry up and spread the manure before it rains, the bomb is going to go off. We need a better style of management so that we can help people. There isn't a single person in Winona County that wants to be responsible or associated with these things. And there's hundreds of farmers that manage this without lighting the fuse and having the risk. That's the paradigm that we need here. We need one of prevention, not of retribution. And it's so important that we focus on helping people. That's all I need to say. I think I've made my point. Thank you for your attention to this. You'll be hearing more. We intend to have a press release and conference, a video conference. We're planning that within the next week. The state can't tell us anything about this, but we know a lot about it on all of these. So watch for that announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Broberg. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to share a public comment with us?
Hello, good morning. My name is Ann Olson. I'm with Animal Folks, and my address 1041 Grand Avenue, St. Paul, Minnesota. We work closely with residents in Winona County on the issue of large-scale dog breeding facilities. Thank you. We do understand that this issue is going to be on today's agenda, approve or deny discussion. So thank you to Commissioner Olson for moving it forward and Commissioner Koveski for seconding that. We respectfully ask that you vote yes to allow discussion. As many of you know, the public's concern about these facilities has been shared with you through emails and letters and calls and petitions and testimony for many, many years. We do believe discussion is good. It allows everybody to learn more about this particular industry and the impact on the dogs, consumers, veterinarians, shelters, the community as a whole. We do ask that the discussion also include public input, so those familiar with canine health and others who interact with some of these dogs and puppies can be heard as well. And we'd be happy to help with county staff in any way to be able to collect data or just assist in any way. We ask you again, please vote yes. And thank you.
Thanks. Is there anyone else here in the audience that would like to share their thoughts with us?
Good morning. My name is Ann Joria. I live in town at 344 Knott Valley Drive. I'm also a concerned resident regarding the large-scale dog breeding facilities. I want to thank Commissioner Olson for bringing this up and Commissioner Koveski for seconding the motion to have this discussion today. So I am concerned about the physical and psychological harm that dogs and puppies endure at large breeding kennels. I would ask that Winona County consider placing a moratorium on further permits for large-scale dog breeding facilities. This will allow the county to learn more about the dog breeding industry, and its impact on the welfare of the dogs, as well as time to review permits and conditions and compliance measures that are currently in place. So I ask that you vote yes to place the issue of dog breeding facilities on the county board agenda for discussion in the future. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good morning. I'm Gail Getzman, Big Valley Ranch, 22036 East Burns Valley Road. You know how I feel about large-scale puppy mills. I really thank you for putting us on the agenda today. Please vote yes for a discussion. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Carly McGinty, the Winona County Feedlot Officer. I just wanted to touch on the fish kill and what's going on right now in North with Brush Creek. There's 3 departments involved or agencies. The MPCA, they're in charge of manure tracking. The Department of Ag is in charge of fertilizers, herbicides, any chemicals that were sprayed. And the DNR, they're in charge of like pathology and kind of figuring out what killed them. The fish kill was reported late. We believe the fish had been dead for quite some time before we went out and investigated. All the fish were already on the bottom, covered in silt primarily. And then the fish kill actually happened north of or upstream of County Road 29 bridge. And so it wasn't just downstream. We think it happened on the south tributary, not the north tributary. And the MPCA has just tasked me with getting manure management records from everyone in the watershed. I've collected over 60 of those so far, but they are in charge of enforcement and they're not speaking on that until after everything is completed and concluded. So we don't know much right now. We do know there was a 2-inch rain event that occurred on Saturday, and that's when we think this happened. There was also an ethanol spill that happened on that Saturday. Ethanol tanker flipped over in the watershed, so that could be contributing, but we don't necessarily know precisely what happened right now. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Carly. And just for the record, since you're speaking in public comment, what's your address?
17254 County Road 6, Utica, Minnesota 55979.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else?
Hi, I'm Lita Johnson. My address is 104 Main Street, apartment 116, Winona, Minnesota 55987. Okay. Well, I'm also want to thank you for moving forward on the issue of commercial dog breeding. And I thank you all for considering this issue. And I really feel it's really abused. And I pray that you will please vote yes to allow discussion on the large scale breeding of dog facilities. Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else here in the audience or on the internet that would like to make a public comment?
Good morning, Barb Nelson, 23078 Highway 14 at Lewiston at the Arches. Here she is again to complain about water quality. 2,500 trout. Most people who are lucky even to catch something that size wouldn't eat it. They just return it for someone else, to have the excitement of catching it. And I've never even seen a 27-inch trout. We used to raise trout, but what we learned, anything raised in confinement doesn't taste as good as things in the wild. So we value and love our trout. Okay. I know how slow they grow. And I wonder how old that fish was. The fish, they were 25 inches, 27 inches. Pity the poor fisherman that takes one over the limit. He pays, doesn't he? What about 2,500 trout? Who's going to pay for that? How we won't be paid for that. Something we've lost forever. We're expecting answers this time. I'm sick and tired of hearing, that there's no, everything's inconclusive. When the Arches Park suffered a loss a couple of years ago, we showed a big pile of manure right at the head of the ravine flowing right into the park. Inconclusive. I don't know. I'm not even a scientist, and it didn't take me long to learn where the crap was coming from. We know it's not the first kill, many kills. Too much manure, too many row crops, no place to put the manure. Bad time of the year, right? No oversight. Where's the oversight? Who's counting the cows or watching the pits? Saturday night, we had a rain. Between my house and barn, we have a bridge going over the creek. Mud and cow shit. That's what was flowing down under my bridge Saturday night. And it wasn't that big of a rain. We expect to get some good answers. We know, we're not scientists, we know where it's coming from. And a personal, heartfelt thank you to those of you who voted to not raise the animal cap.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Before you start, we have exceeded our 10-minute limit. It's up to the board if we want to continue with the public comment period. What is the thought? Yeah, yes? Okay, thanks. Please
I'm
proceed.
David White, live at 705 West Wabasha in Winona, Minnesota. Previous speakers have talked about this fish kill problem and delineated many of the specific problems that led to it. But I want to address the county board in general and Marshall Ward and Steve Jacob and specifically, because these gentlemen and this lady represent the areas that contribute to the problem. The farmers that they represent are the problem. But they have to remember that it's not just farmers that they're representing. There's a large contingent of other people that are concerned about the water quality and the efforts of the DNR to maintain the fish populations in these streams. When farmers are allowed and not held responsible for the problems that they cause, then that impacts all the other people in the county, and specifically the trout fishermen. But that's not just only them. So I want to encourage and actually demand that Steve Jacob and Marshall Ward follow up with these problems, not with the DNR, the MPCA, and what state agency is involved. The problem is they initially investigate, and then time goes by and the public fear drops off and they forget about it and nothing happens. But it's up to you people to keep their feet to the fire and make sure that they do something about it. It's in your district and it's your responsibility, and I expect you to do that. Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. My name's Tim Ahrens. I'm at 12969 County Road 31 in Altura. The fish kill brings me a lot of concern too. We heard from our feedlot officer, and I was at a meeting earlier this year when there was an annual report from the feedlot officer, and we found out that there'll be a convention of feedlot officers in Winona County, among the reasons because of our experience in dealing with the aftermath of fish kills. I think we need to become a county with experience in the prevention of fish kills. So this is happening so frequently In the same manner, to the degree that we might reach a point where we could schedule that convention in order to have a live demonstration of how to handle fish kills. So another concern of mine is I'm wondering when the Road and Bridge Committee moved their meetings to twice annually. I know I spoke with Commissioner Ward about that, and she had mentioned it was a scheduling conflict with members of the board who weren't on the Road and Bridge Committee, and I don't know. I know they meet with their advisory committees when other commissioners aren't able to be present. So I'm just wondering when that schedule changed. I think it's kind of an example of less government, less freedom, because we even haven't had the opportunity in months here just to address our concerns related to road projects that affect us. So Malia and I will have to go, but we certainly welcome any follow-up on that. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Malia Haugen, address 12969 County Road 31, Altura. The last time I came to a county board meeting was to speak on the animal unit cap. And again, I'm certainly grateful the cap exists and remains in place. Because 2 weeks ago, Rush Creek near Lewiston, as we've well discussed this morning, experienced a devastating blow to its ecological integrity. Over 2,500 fish were killed, most likely due to farm runoff. 2,500 fish. That's more than our animal unit cap. Imagine if that cap wasn't in place and a nearby dairy farm was pumping 4 times more manure into the surrounding area. How many fish do we think would have died then? Unfortunately, this isn't a one-time occurrence. Mass fish kills like this are becoming like clockwork in our area, year after year after year after year. If we do nothing and if nothing changes, we can almost guarantee it will happen again about the same time next year. You can probably go ahead and mark your calendar, unfortunately. And here we'd be looking even more foolish for yet another mass fish kill. So my questions for the board today are, what are we doing about this? What are you doing to help investigate this catastrophe? What are you doing to work in conjunction with the MPCA? What are you doing to hold involved parties accountable and responsible? If someone is out trout fishing and catches more than their legal limit, they can be fined a couple $100s to a few $1,000s. So what will the penalty be for killing 2,500 fish in one go? I hope the board will be thoroughly discussing, reviewing, and taking action on this disaster so we don't have yet another mass fish kill that just gets swept under the rug like it never happened. Thank you for your time.
Is there anyone else here in the room or attending the meeting via Ring Central that would like to make a public comment? I'm going to ask 2 more times before closing the public comment period. Is there anyone else here in the audience or attending on the internet that would like to make a public comment to the county board? And for the final time, is there anyone here in the audience or attending via Ring Central that would like to participate in the public comment period? Hearing nothing, the public comment period is closed. The next order of business would be approval of previous minutes.
I'll move to approve 3.1 and 3.2.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Ward has, pardon me, Commissioner Jacob has moved and Commissioner Ward has seconded approval of the county board minutes from the closed session of July 26, 2022, and the county board meeting from the same date. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion passes. The next order of business is acknowledging the receipt of our approved committee minutes.
Move to acknowledge 4.1 and 4.2. Second.
Commissioner Jacob has moved and Commissioner Olson has seconded, acknowledging receipt of the committee minutes for the Board of Adjustment of May 19th of 2022 and the Planning Commission of June 16th of 2022. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. The next order of business is approval of the agenda and reviewing the consent business. So Commissioner Ward,
Yes, please. I would like to pull 6.4 for a separate vote.
okay, so we can make that 7.0.
And then just a couple of announcements, please.
Commissioner Kavesi.
I have a committee report and also some announcements.
Mr. Olson,
Nothing for me.
Commissioner Jacob.
I will need to pull 6.1 for a separate vote. I'll need to recuse myself from that vote.
Okay, we'll make that 7.01. That's it. Anything else? Okay, I also have an announcement. Okay, so we have some amendments to our agenda.
Vote to approve the amended agenda.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Ward has moved and Commissioner Jacob has seconded approval of the agenda as amended. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Agenda is approved. Administrator Holte, could you read for us the consent business?
6.1 has been pulled. 6.2, approve conditional use permit for Allen Detweiler and Freeman Detweiler. 6.3, approve interim use permit for Allen Detweiler and Freeman Detweiler. 6.4 has been pulled. 6.5, approve renewal of Veteran Service Office Operational Enhancement Grant Program Agreement and Resolution. 6.6, approve 2022 Solid Waste Facility License Application for LRS of Minnesota LLC. 6.7, approve voucher payment to Bruce Barkheim for equipment and installation to remove contaminants from water. 6.8, approve application and resolution for proposal of Ultra Well Sealing Grant. 6.9, approve contract for cost share to Jeff and Sandy Larson for equipment and installation to remove contaminants from water. 6.10, approve agreement with debt book. 6.11, confirm payment of disbursement.
Thank you.
I'm going to approve the consent agenda as read.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Jacob has moved and Commissioner Kavesi has seconded approval of the consent agenda as read. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, consent agenda is approved. We move on to our general business, beginning with 7.0, which used to be 6.4 on the written packet. Approve Supervisor Association Amendment 2021.
Madam Chair, I did ask to pull this. It is a amendment to add a position to a union group. And again, it's an opportunity that the discussion I've always asked for as pay for performance. There is no mention or no discussion about that, so I will not support this.
Motion to approve 6.4, which is 7.0.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Olson has moved and Commissioner Kavesi has seconded. Item 7.0, approve the Supervisor Association Amendment for 2021. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Motion carries. Next item is 7.01, which used to be 6.1, which would be to approve the conditional use permit for Steve and Marianne Jacob and Trent and Ashton Jacob.
Madam Chair, I would move to approve the conditional use permit after following the discussion through the Planning Commission, seeing that they addressed all the issues.
Second.
Okay. Commissioner Ward has moved and Commissioner Olson has seconded approval of the conditional use permit for Steve and Marianne Jacob and Trent and Ashton Jacob. Is there any further discussion?
Just make it clear I'm recusing myself.
Would you like a voice vote or a roll call vote?
As long as it's clear that I'm recusing myself.
Okay. Probably we can tell. Okay, so all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone abstaining?
Abstaining, yes.
Anyone who disagrees, say nay. Motion carries. This moves us on to our item 7.1 of our general business, which is to receive the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation update presentation. And I see Mr. Penny is with us.
Madam Chair. Information on that.
Thank you very much.
Keep my remarks relatively brief.
I'll give one to Commissioner Bessie.
Good morning. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I appreciate the opportunity to give an annual update on the work of the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation. I do appreciate the support that we receive from Winona County as well as the other 19 counties in our 20 county region. It represents, in my view, a partnership around the economic and community vitality of this corner of the state, which is our essential mission. Our motto is collaborating for regional vitality, and we try to work very closely with other organizations in the region that are investing in the future of Southern Minnesota. We basically do three things, and I've shared this with you in past presentations. Based on the guidance of our board of directors, we invest a couple million annually in early childhood initiatives because that's a long-term bet on a quality workforce. And we know that the current workforce really wants to know that they have quality child care for their preschool age children. We invest in entrepreneurship. That includes partnerships around local foods. That includes some lending programs. It also includes a training program for new immigrant minority entrepreneurs that are growing part of our population here in this corner of the state. And then we have some programs that are dedicated strictly to the smaller towns in the region. In the early childhood space, over the last couple of years, we've distributed about $30,000 worth of books, early learning programs here in your county, including the Winona Public Schools, Lewiston Public Schools, St. Charles Public Schools, St. Matthew Preschool, Riverway Learning Center, and other organizations. I think the public library also got some of those books for some reading programs. We've also provided a grant to the St. Charles School for some preschool training programs to get these kids ready for kindergarten. In addition, we provide trainings throughout the year for early childhood providers so they can get the continuing ed credits they need in order to stay in business and be the best that they can be. And dozens of providers in your county have taken advantage of those training programs. And we have an AmeriCorps program where a couple individuals have been placed in early learning sites here in your county, the Ridgeway School, as well as the Montessori School, to become essentially a teacher aide to help those children with the greatest challenges at that age. Last but not least, I want to mention that during COVID, we provided special grants to early childhood providers to help them make the adjustments they needed to make in order to keep their children safe. And 29 of those grants came to childcare providers in your county. In the entrepreneur space, we have provided a grant to St. Charles to do some work around linking the school and the economic goals of the community. And in addition to that, we do have a number of local food producers and processors that participate in this collaborative that we've created around local foods to advance and enhance that sector here in our region. Beyond that, some of our more recent loans are to help with an expansion at the co-op grocery here in town, as well as the gypsum facility here in the community. And we've worked with the Port Authority and the EDA on those initiatives. During COVID, we were tasked by the state of Minnesota with federal dollars to get out business recovery grants to businesses that were affected by the restrictions and the shutdowns that were part of those COVID years. And we were able to distribute 87 of those grants to businesses in your county, totaling about $875,000 to help them overcome some of the losses they experienced during those restrictions and shutdowns. And then the small town grant program, we have provided a paint program to the Lewiston School District, also to the county fair for the 4-H building. And we help to maintain the community fund in St. Charles, which is used for a variety of purposes to enhance the vitality of that community. So Again, we do early childhood, we do entrepreneurship, we do some small town programming, and those are examples of the resources that we brought back to your county over the last couple of years. And again, I appreciate the opportunity to give you this update. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioner Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Penny, for coming today and sharing your report. You triggered a list or books. You said you handed out books. Got some issues with maybe, can you provide me with a list of those books that were provided?
Yeah, it's quite a long list, but if I can do one of two things. I can either give you the comprehensive list of the different titles that are available, or I can give you the specific listing of the books that came to the entities that I've just described. It's either way.
Either. Well,
Yeah.
The second probably, yeah.
It's no big secret, but these are early reader books. Most of them have to do with colors and numbers and, the kind of thing that preschool age children need to get a handle on so they can come to kindergarten ready to learn.
Okay, sure. I would appreciate
I can do that.
Thank you.
I need her email address. Commissioner, yes, please do. And I'll make sure I get that to you, Marcia.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Or I should say Commissioner. I don't want to be too
We've
informal.
known each other for a long time. Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? If not, this is not so much a question as a thank you. I'm really grateful for the work that Smith has done with the Regional Comprehensive Economic Development Strategic Plan. It's a plan that Smith has been partnering with a number of other organizations to collect information from stakeholders across the region. Once that plan is in place, it makes many of our government entities eligible for grant funds that would not otherwise be available if that plan did not exist. And so
Thank you for bringing that up. I should have mentioned that.
Yeah, I'm really grateful for the work that you've done.
And that planning process, which includes a lot of local elected officials, as well as EDA directors and others across the 20-county region, actually the 11-county region on the east side of our 20-county region, has been underway for the last year or so. And the finishing touches on that strategic plan will be completed this fall. And then, as you say, having that plan in place makes entities, cities, counties within our region eligible for a variety of federal grant programs. Thank you. Unless there are further questions, see you all again soon. All right. Thanks.
Thank you. Keep up the good work.
The next item on our agenda is item 7.2, which is to receive an update on the 2020 State Audit Corrective Action Plan. I'm Administrator Holte. Will you be doing that with us?
Yes.
Thanks.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, there is information within your packet. I'm not sure to what extent you wanted to have dialogue or discuss the action steps that have been taken to address the corrective action plan. But I am proud to say that the team has worked diligently to ensure that the Health and Human Services item has been addressed. We do need to continue working with the legislative group to get changes with these state programs. They're very antiquated. It's difficult to get effective processes in place when the technology isn't where it needs to be. So I can say that thus far, we are anticipating a good audit report for 2021. So again, that's tentative because it's not official yet. But the verbal word is we did good.
I'm delighted, especially since this has been an issue for, like, honestly, going back to 2013. Yeah, great. Do other commissioners have comments? Otherwise, I just have one more, but Commissioner Kavesi.
Yeah, I just have a question. Been working with several subcommittees looking at HHS and the access and different capabilities that we request from this organization because it's major. It's our largest county staff. And I think it's obviously the face of the county with the public. I was curious to know what kind of open positions we have right now. And also if there's any initiative to take a look at the caseloads for the supervisors and for the caseworkers. I'm concerned that our caseloads are very high and that contributes to some of the issues that hinder the effectiveness of this organization. I appreciate all the work that is done through this organization. I think our staff works very hard and diligently to keep up with things and to keep everything going, so I do appreciate that. But I just wondering if we can give them some help on those particular issues. I don't need answers today, but those are some of the things that I'm concerned about.
Commissioner Ward.
The whole area of working with the federal government and trying to do the correct billables, the coding and all that stuff is monumental. But we have invested quite a bit in technology. Is there a need for, but there again, the state and the federal government provide, and I believe they are lacking. But is there anything we need to do as far as technology to help in making sure we code things correct and we don't leave money on the table that's due us from other agencies? I think that's one of the big concerns I've always had, is that we do great work. As Commissioner Kavesi said, we do great work and everything, but we've got to collect what's due to us from these other agencies. And have we addressed some of that, Ms. Holte, or is it still an ongoing dilemma?
It is an ongoing dilemma. We are making progress. Mr. Moga can attest that we are seeing an increase in the revenue recapture. It's a slow process, but part of is taking a lot of time is training. We have to train the new staff. We have to train even our more senior staff. Things change so quickly. So it's a matter of time, but we are making progress.
Thank you.
If there aren't other commissioners, I do have a couple things. The first one is, it doesn't have to be in public and at a meeting, but could you keep us apprised of the hiring process as it moves forward, so that we'll know? And I mean, it sounds to me like you have restructured what the positions were to more directly address what the concerns were with the failures to complete the right kind of eligibility checks. And the second thing I would say is that in my role on the CJCC, I'm on the Early Intervention and Prevention Committee. I'm a co-chair of that committee. And we have heard that the public in general, I mean, which is to say, no, the navigators, the folks who work in positions that refer people to the county, they also are very hungry for training. To better understand what programs we administer, to better understand what they can do to accurately and appropriately refer people, and to make it easier for folks to actually make those applications. So I appreciate the need for our new staff and with all the turnover to get trained, but I'm hoping that we can help the folks in the Navigator Network as well to know how, to get the kind of training that they can have to better refer their clients to our programs. Yes.
To that, Director Sanis and I just recently spoke about options of what resources can we provide these community navigators so that they can obtain their own training, not just rely on Winona County. We most certainly need to be part of that equation, but we want to help them be self-sufficient. So we are putting together some tools to provide them just as a beginner.
Perfect. And I will say that your staff, in particular Naomi, attends those meetings, and she's been a great resource in gathering information and helping us understand how it is that, that we can move forward on some of the issues with access to services. So thanks. Commissioner Ward, Jacob.
Yeah, I would essentially reiterate what Commissioner Ward stated about revenue recapture and the importance of that. I know it's been a focus of previous administration and, for a number of years. I think that's got to be a high priority. Mhm.
All right. We have completed our discussion on item 7.2. Then the next item is 7.3, which is to approve or deny a future agenda item to discuss dog breeding facilities. Commissioner Olson.
I asked for this to come before the board. We had a report by Kate Qualley that went out quite some time ago, which was multi-page research that she had done, and I'd like to bring that forward and discuss it and see if we can address any of the concerns that have been brought forward. So I would make a motion to bring that to another meeting.
I will second that motion to further discussion. Ms. Qualley would like to speak.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. If there's any desire by the board on this topic, in addition to an agenda item here for a work session, just let us know and let us prepare any topics of interest that you want a deeper dive into beyond the material that we submitted. Thank you.
Commissioner Ward.
Staff has spent quite a bit of time putting together quite a document and everything. And again, this is an issue that Winona County only plays one part in the whole operation of dog breeding facilities. So are we going to ask those other partners to also present any information or tighten? Everybody seems to want to tighten some controls up or something. There's discussion of that. So are we going to ask the Department of Ag to be present for any discussion? Because there's a lot that we do not control in this area. I guess, I mean, staff has a lot of things on their plate. This is another one. Yes, we permit it from a planning zoning perspective, but are we going to ask staff to inquire of these other agencies, or is it just from a strictly planning and zoning, dimensional building facilities? Or are we going into quality care and everything, which we don't really have control over?
Commissioner Jacob.
But at this point, I feel like that's maybe a premature question. This is, are we going to have that discussion? I would maybe dovetail this with, of course, it's good for us to talk about issues, and I would hope the rest of the board would consider other issues like the animal unit cap. I'm going to support this. I believe that we should have the discussion and understand the issue in its entirety and do what's best for the community. I'm reserved about, ban after ban that this county has imposed with mining and building, and I don't know if they're thinking about some type of moratorium or ban here. So I do care about property rates, those issues, but I guess I'm being guilty of what I just said. This would be a discussion for the future. I support having a discussion about it.
Mr. Ward.
Well, and I agree, discussion is not bad, but I think staff deserves a little more clarity on what the discussion would encompass. And so, yes, our process is, we do this 3 times and then it comes. But for staff to know what research and information to pull together, I think we need to be a little more specific.
Well, my sense is that's what our first discussion would be. We would open that up and we don't know yet what we're asking because we haven't had the discussion.
That's a flaw in the process.
We had the opportunity to change that process a few months ago. I am wondering, I had asked the Administrator Holte a while ago if the report that Ms. Qualley had delivered to us could be, because people in the public had asked me if I could give it to them to review, and she had suggested not to do that. I'm wondering if we can make that report public. You were at the time, of course, not yet returned from your medical leave, so could I send my copy to the individuals in the public who have asked?
Madam Chair, I had requested that we wait until Ms. Qualley was back to bring it to the board, and then most certainly the document is public. It was prepared in the sense to make it a public document.
Okay, so it's okay.
It most
Thank you.
certainly can be.
I appreciate that. And the folks who have called me, I'm sure will appreciate it.
And the most recent document, you just got something, wasn't it the last week or so?
Nope.
I had resent it.
Oh, okay, that was just a resend.
We've had it, I don't know, 6 weeks ago, a long time, back in July.
Dated May 26th.
Ms. Qualley.
I think we get something this week.
Because of the board's interest, we had reviewed this material with all of the zoning administrators of the state of Minnesota. And so the PowerPoint presentations you saw from the USDA as well as the Board of Animal Health were in a sense already public information, having gone out to all the zoning administrators and also toward training. And although Eric Johnson is now out temporarily, it was through his initiative that our department participated because we were working on the agenda for that. So as far as our department's concerned,
Thank you. Commissioner Kavesi.
Yeah, originally I made a second to bring this up for the third discussion and to place it on to vote to place it on a future agenda. So I'm in support of further discussion. I do appreciate the packet of information, and I think it's very complete. It actually does specify the Board of Animal Health and Department of Agriculture roles within these tasks. So I don't know if they need to be present to reinforce those in a future discussion or whatever. But the other piece of information would be any violations that have been found.
Is that a request for additional information?
Yeah, just it's not, I mean, it's timely, just if we could have it on hand before we discuss it.
Commissioner Jacob.
Well, I feel like no one commissioner has the power to direct staff, and that request is maybe one meeting premature. I think that should be after our discussion. If the board decides that's what they want, then that's what we should do. So,
Okay, we've ignored that rule already today, so I thought it was okay to bring it up. Also, we've had requests from Department Head Qualley to forward further information that she would, that we would like investigated. So I'll be glad to wait till the next discussion.
Is there further discussion on this topic? Hearing none. All those in favor of moving to approve a future agenda item to discuss dog breeding facility signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. We are now on to committee reports and communications. If I can find my notes, Commissioner Ward, you had an announcement.
Yes. Remember, today is primary day. Get out and vote. It's very important. We got a lot of things going on in not only Winona County, but in the state of Minnesota and at a federal level with our re-election, our vacancy with the Hagedorn seat is very important for all of southern Minnesota. Otherwise, I would like to say last week, a big thank you to the Leonard's family. They did an outstanding job in doing the family night on the farm. Of course, it was a beautiful evening. We couldn't have asked for a better evening, and it was very well attended. And a big thank you to the Chamber of Commerce. It takes a lot of work to pull that off. Leaving, everybody said they had many more people. I didn't get a count, but they had more evening participants than they had anticipated. And it was just a great event to again reestablish. It had been void for a couple of years and a lot of people enjoyed it, and it was an outstanding evening. So thank you both to the Leonard's family and the Chamber of Commerce for hosting that. Thank you.
Thanks. Commissioner Kavesi, a committee report and announcement?
Yeah, as is usual, since WINLAC meets the second Monday of every month, we had a meeting yesterday, and just to bring you up to date, we approved the targeted implementation aspect of the plan, section of the plan, and it's actually in it includes maps and goals for each implementation section, for the Whitewater section, the Garvin Brook section, the Mississippi La Crescent section, and then for the overall watershed aspects. So that was a major piece to approve. And in fact, it was our last piece. And so the document is now being compiled and will be reviewed by the full committee and shortly. We also approved the review timelines to make sure we were on target to have public input, and the technical advisory committee and all of the people who have been working on this. So the entire document is being compiled, as I said, and will be available shortly for further review. The last thing we did was we discussed and decided on an implementation structure using a collaborative approach rather than a joint powers board. So that also was a major decision, and that begins a whole process now of legal review and presentation back to the policy committee. So we're still working on that, but we did make that decision. I was up in the cities on Thursday night, and I found out two important things. I was at the University of Minnesota in the student union, and lo and behold, Jake Overgaard has a pillar up there with his picture on it and a description of some of the work done by our county extension agents. So even though he's not continuing to work for us, that was a pleasant surprise and a nice recognition of the work done by the extension services. So I appreciated that. The other thing is my sister works as a volunteer for it's biennial. It's a solar car race that's done through the universities. It's international, but the University of Minnesota has competed through their engineering department and probably some of their other schools of work. Consistently every year. In fact, the race ended a few years ago in St. Paul, so all the cars actually drove up Highway 61 right through Winona. So I hope we'll have a chance to see them again sometime, but because they're quite unusual. But these are solar cars developed through university programs, and the University, as I said, of Minnesota has been high in the placement in several years, but this year they won the race for the multiple occupancy vehicle. And the race was from St. Joseph, Missouri to Idaho, following part of the Oregon Trail. So it was quite a intensive experience, and they had dust storms, which they really had to watch out for. But it's nice to know that the University of Minnesota not only has a reputation, but has awards in this unique event. So if you ever get a chance to see the solar cars, one of them was actually stopped by a state trooper in Ohio who questioned whether it was roadworthy.
Yeah, they don't look like
They
automobiles.
yes, and they have a rigid, that they can only plug in at certain times and all that. It's very controlled, but it's a good event for our students, and I'm pleased to announce that award.
Mr. Jacob, did you have something?
Well, just I'm a automotive enthusiast, so I'd like to put in a plug for fossil fuel racing. There's motorbikes, drag race cars, stock cars, boats. It's endless and it's very exciting.
That's it? Okay, thank you. So I missed family night on the farm. I represent the board on the Great River Rail Commission, and we had a lobbying trip to Milwaukee. So a number of us took the train to Milwaukee and then learned about streetcars. But the important part was that we got to be on the train with a number of the legislators from the Minnesota State Legislature who are on the Transportation Committee, and then we're able to thank them for the 19 million in track upgrades that we're going to be getting to support the second train. And Amtrak itself will be upgrading our Amtrak station to make it ADA compliant, and that's worth a couple $1,000s. And I learned over the trip the sad news that Paul Drodos, the commissioner from Goodhue County, had cancer and that it was quite advanced. And he was a great advocate for sustainability and for the Great River Rail Corridor and for Red Wing, which he represented. And then I learned through AMC that in fact he had passed away over the weekend. He has, there is a memorial service that's going to be held on Thursday. It's a drop-in affair from 4 to 7. So very sorry to know the passing of someone who I consider a friend and a fellow county commissioner, Paul Drodos.
Yes, if I can add, I worked with Paul on the shack. So he was involved in a number of activities related to public health, and he will be missed.
I think that concludes our business.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, Commissioner Jacob has moved and Commissioner Olson has seconded adjournment of this session of the Winona County Board of Commissioners. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We are adjourned.
Short break.
Yep.
Please.
This
warm up,
No, I got one. Thank you. I'm good.
This working session is to discuss outside agencies' budget and the capital improvement plan for 2023. Are we going to lead with something from our administrator or? Yes, please.
Okay. So the intent of this meeting is to go over the outside agencies and capital improvement project plan. As you can see, the numbers are enclosed in the packet. I do want to kind of reiterate that as of right now, the outside agency are entered as they are in 2022. So we did not add those to the budget yet, any cost increases. I did want to briefly touch on the kind of Excel spreadsheet that was provided in the packet, where it just gives you a little additional information about the outside agencies, or what we're calling outside agencies, whether we have a contract with them or not. And then a little more detailed information was that provided to us, meaning, maybe their financials, that kind of stuff. And then some kind of miscellaneous notes. So I just wanted to give that as a little additional information. The rest of the packet is self-explanatory, and I'm not going to go over that. So first of all, wondering if you have questions about the data that's been provided.
And I appreciate the contract now. Have we followed up? Are they meeting the contract?
Well, that gets into additional weeds. Part of the discussion Mr. Mulga and I have had is, what really is an outside entity, an agency? If we have a contract, I'm not quite sure why we are calling them an outside agency, because if they're providing a service, then it's whatever department that they're providing the service or who is coordinating the services. It really should just be part of that budget and not really considered, again, from my perspective, as part of an outside agency request. If it is not a service, then that's really kind of one of those discretionary expenditures.
So do you mean a mandated service or every one of these provides some type of service? It's just whether it's something that should be taxpayer funded or whether it's You know, for me, I'm looking at SWCD and I'm thinking, you know, that's government interrelated. And some of these are just kind of asked from the community, and how did they obtain taxpayer monies where we've got probably many dozens of other groups that are not receiving taxpayer funds.
Right.
So.
Right. And that's where, you know, over the years, I've observed many commissioners, boards discussing the outside agencies and why are certain ones qualified or labeled as such, and why do we have contracts with some but not others? So it's really, I don't know if the board wants to have that kind of conversation, or if it's really, you want to go through each agency and decide whether to fund as they request or otherwise. I'm kind of open it up for what direction do you want to go with that?
Well, at one of our previous meetings, just not very long ago, so the Women's Resource Center was called into question. It was the Advocacy Center, and at that time, I brought up that at a future meeting, I would like to discuss the funding because of some of the literature that had been distributed to the community. And at that point, Commissioner Kavesi said, well, let's discuss that at this meeting. So, so I guess there are those pieces. I feel like some of that is completely out of control and wildly inappropriate for us to be taking taxpayers' dollars for some agenda that huge blocks of the taxpayer don't want public money spent on. So I guess that's part of the discussion I would want to have.
With your previous comment, I know there's some groups on this that are statutorily required funding. Libraries, I think that maybe the Historical Society, there's a statute that refers to them. I'm not sure. The fair, County Agricultural Society, which is the fair, there's a statute that relates to those. To your knowledge, are there any others that have statutorial history that require cultivated funding? I don't know if they require funding, but they've cultivated
I
funding.
understand senior advocacy services.
That there is a statute for that?
I believe Veteran Services also is a statute on that, correct, Pat?
Yeah, there's statute that almost there's statute that, but it's not like they're required. The only one that I think that's required here or based to is Selco, and it's 197 and some odd dollars. I don't know the exact dollar amount.
Right, that's a formula that the legislature.
But it is my
put in place.
understanding if we did not contract with the senior advocacy services, that we would have to provide those services ourselves.
Yeah, there's services that we would have to provide.
Yeah. And so I think in many cases, it's more cost effective for us
But we
to use a
always
nonprofit.
we always say that, but I guess I've never been provided an actual list. And is there another internal organization or something that does some of these things? I guess, you know, we say that and we want to feel good about that, but is that, you know, when we're looking at first blush, a 5 million discrepancy between our budget, I mean, this is the first place or one of the first places we need to start looking for as far as funding. And sometimes it's not a lot of money, but there's principles involved.
On the senior citizen, if you look on, it's the second page of kind of description. I just took a little snip of the contract that's out there, and it kind of says what they're providing. And it says furnish advocacy services to senior citizens and information referral services. That's set forth in the exhibit. And there's a contract, and right now we're not getting anything out of that. I think that's the second is detailed information, and we're not giving anything.
Although they gave us information last year. Chad came and Malia Fox came. I also attended the city council meeting for that discussion. And I'll tell you that they said, and the city council members said, if the county was not willing to pay what the actual cost was, that they would quit delivering those services to anyone who doesn't reside inside the city of Winona.
That was in one of their documents also that they admitted to us.
Right. Is that a threat? We provide, the county, if we want to go down that path, the county provides services and the rural taxpayers pay for SEMSHA, which is providing services for the citizens of Winona City for housing. And as we heard Buffy Bronick say last month, they're giving us $1,000 and it costs a lot more than $1,000 to service 100.
So I would be a proponent that we should get along with the cities that are
Well,
inside our borders.
Right. But they
And that
put
we
it in
should
there.
pay our fair share.
Yeah. But then they
But it
should
is
too.
your constituents who would not be allowed for services, and then the county would have to provide those which are mandated. So, and the reason I say it's usually easier to use a nonprofit or an organization that's providing those services is because they have other supporters. They get grants, and then they have individuals who make donations to them as a nonprofit. So our dollars are leveraged in that we get the services, and we don't have to necessarily pay for the full cost.
May I have Director Sanis? If you could share your knowledge on it.
Good morning. So I have done some digging into the senior advocacy services, and I have, because Ms. Fox and administration at the city of Winona has stated that this is a mandated service, but yet when I've pushed for statutory requirements of that mandated service, I have not seen that. So I continue to ask. They keep saying that they provide adult protection services. It is not adult protection services. It is senior advocacy services that they provide with resources and referrals. And I have done my own digging looking for the statutory requirements for the senior advocacy services, and I have not been able to locate the statutes.
Information.
Okay. You're welcome.
So as part of reviewing all of the, as we have identified as outside agencies, would it be helpful if we compile which ones that we can locate that are statutory and how they're statutory?
Yes,
Is that
for
going
sure.
to help you in your review process?
I would appreciate that.
And is it, how much is it that you need us to achieve today in order to inform the budget process, which is why I assume we're having this session?
Any direction you can provide is helpful. Really looking for kind of some direction on what do you need in order to make an informed decision. I am hopeful that we can get to a discussion in some degree about your comfort level with levy. I understand that that's really difficult right now, but I think we need to have that kind of conversation. I would hope that we could have some kind of direction on the capital improvement plan. Again, what's your comfort level of how much you're willing to push things out because it's going to come back the next year and years to come. So I'm kind of looking for a comfort level of what are you comfortable with?
Well, your initial number is 25% on the levy.
Are you telling me that doesn't feel good? Just
Yeah,
checking.
yeah, so but my comfort level is 0 or less.
Oh, I don't think I'm going to be able to make that. I mean, we'll do our best. Trust me. We're really working hard on it.
Question. Regarding the local option sales tax option, or whatever you want to call it, do we have any, we don't have any indications that there might be a special session before the November ballot so that we could put a referendum on? Is that, it looks 0 to slim.
Doesn't look really good.
Yeah.
But we are still pushing and advocating for their support, our legislative folks. It's not totally off the plate right now, is what I was told on Friday. So I'm going to keep pushing.
Yeah.
If there's a window of opportunity, I'm going to push.
So is our intention then to reapply next year and begin the legislative process again, even though we were almost at the finish line this year?
We were informed we could come back and start the process again in January.
Okay.
So I mean, what I took from the email that we got is that we'd already levied
Right.
last year, so there is an increase of something like 3%, and that's to be dedicated towards the rest of the debt reduction. And that it would be great if that could go away next year, but we'll have to.
Right. The email said we had budgeted 874,000, almost 871,000, but that there's a difference that we now need to cover of 652,000, which is a 3.1.
Yeah, about 3 points, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that troubles me that, we've inherited this additional expense. So.
It's not about your choice of words inherited. You voted for it, so we didn't inherit it.
Right, but
It was
we
a
had
voted action.
an option to spread it out over a different payment method than property tax. Yeah, that's what I'm concerned about.
You said you talked to somebody on Friday regarding the special session. Who are you communicating?
So he is the MICA contact, Matthew.
Matt Massman?
Mossman, Matt Mossman. Yeah.
Just curious.
Well, with your email, yeah, 25%, of course, I had to sit back and laugh. First of all, because there's no way in this universe I would support anything near that. A question though is that as far as the bond payment, we do have some reserves. So we could possibly, with the idea that we did have the support from local legislators and to move this forward, and I have confidence that they would move that forward for us. Get the state and then put it on a referendum. Of course, the referendum, we need to educate a lot of people because there's a lot of stuff going on with referendums with school districts and everything in our area. But we could take the bond payment out of reserves as a short term versus raising the levy. And then also, I didn't see the reduction. I mean, we released from employment a number of the jail staff. Shouldn't there be a little nest egg set aside because we didn't pay those people for the last to cover adding them back into the mix of employees? Where did that savings go? Or was it?
Absorbed by other expenditures for 2022 because those were removed from 2022's budget. So now for 2023, we have to add them back in.
Okay. All right. So it wasn't anything that was set aside. It was, okay, it came totally out of 2022. Okay.
And I think that as much as we all have questions and want to have that, the whole budget discussion, I don't think it's fair to have it today. It's not fair to staff, and it isn't really what our agenda is about.
Well, she wanted to know where our comfort level is, and this is some of the angst that's out there. So, I mean.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So along with Commissioner Jacob, a 0 or a minus would be great.
So I see this as a year when we probably do have to tighten our belts. I don't think that means throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And so I think for organizations, let's say like Big Brother, Big Sister, that are asking for, again, asking for double. No, I don't think it's really the year to do that. In terms of the outside agency requests, but I personally don't feel like throwing out the baby with the bathwater. Right. And then I think with respect to the capital improvement plan, yep, it's really important that if there are some of those items that could be delayed, even just a year, that might be really helpful. And so I see that Mr. Kramer is here. So if that's a thing for us to talk about, then I would
Yeah, I'd like
say,
to have some of those discussions too.
What, pardon?
I'd like to discuss some of those potential expenditures too, specifically that law enforcement center boiler. Yeah,
Yeah, I could speak to that also.
it's a huge
And
number.
Aaron Lafee's also here. That's the original with the building from the 1970s, the boiler system. It's getting to the point where replacement parts are difficult. We could have a scenario where you'd have a breakdown in the dead of winter, and actually it would have to do an emergency replacement of the boiler at that time if there's not replacement parts available. One of the questions in my mind is, how does this fit with the future use of the building and any renovations and reuse of the building? Well, this work would all take place within the boiler room. It would be boilers, valves and piping within the boiler room. So it really needs to be done regardless of the buildings. The rest of the building is going to get used for something, and there's probably going to be some renovations to accommodate that. But this would be a piece that would need to be done. I guess it's not something that might have to get reconfigured as part of a remodel. It is something that's, a need. If there's something to kick the can down the road a year, that I think would probably be a reasonable choice. I don't know if there's anything to add, Aaron.
With the boilers, I mean, we have to come up with a replacement plan. Not saying they're going to go out next year or whatever like that, but in the next few years, it will have to be replaced. We're kind of on its last leg right now. We're been nursing them along. Will I think they make another year if we prolong it? I think they'll make another year, but we need to start at some place before they just completely go out. And if they do go out and we don't have replacement parts, it's not like anybody has these in their warehouse. They're just like our chiller for this building. We ordered it last August and it just finally came in. So even with the boilers, if something happened, it's not like we can get one off the shelf, replace it. We may be waiting 9 months to even get a boiler. So this request was just kind of, we're almost on its last leg. We know that, but maybe, will it last 1 year, 2 years? Nobody really knows, but we'll get to that point.
But how much of the, what part are we actually trying to heat or control? Because we've changed the building and with the new building. So does it need to be as big as it was, or we couldn't have tied into the new construction?
We've looked at the new construction at the time of the jail remodel, and it would have been not the right way to tie in and not as efficient of using the same system for the two buildings.
Yeah, I guess not even knowing what the future use of that building is at this point. It certainly doesn't seem like a high priority for, more than $250,000 budget. And the whole, the jail scenario is frustrating, especially for those of us that voted against it. We've got that expense. We've got now supporting the old building that we don't even know what the use is. And then, of course, the employees coming back into the mix. I think the community is starting to see the impacts financially of this facility. So
just for transparency, I want everyone to know that I asked management to submit all of the things that we need to do, regardless of our budget situation, because from a planning perspective, the board and administration need to understand the needs, not just today, but moving forward. So I appreciate the work that these gentlemen did to put this together.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm just going to add something with the boilers. Houston County Justice Center, we had a boiler go out last year, 11 years old, not under warranty. And we have a redundant system, 2 boilers that alternate. In 13 months time period, the other boiler went out. And the price went up $12,000 in 13 months. So sometimes kicking the can down the road is you're kicking a 12-pack down the road because it just gets more costly to replace, so.
Sell our old one to Houston County as a backup.
I already got one on order.
Put it on the purple wave or
As like you said, we have pumps in our old courthouse at Houston County that, you know, are just obsolete. And you have to, when you replace them, you have to repipe everything, so.
So I thought that the list that had the snowplow and the loader and all that stuff was part of our packet.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I'm looking at that.
What pages is it on?
184 is some of it. Yeah. Yeah, it starts on 179.
I did put on your table a handout that's not in your packet. That's
Yeah,
some
that's-
information that I actually compiled this morning, finished up after 9 o'clock and printed it out and brought it here.
Great.
Regarding the snow plows, and I can go through that if you want when you're ready to talk about that.
I know we had formerly on our capital improvement plans, we had the breakdown of the trucks after this year, where the expense and the cost to maintain it and potential return traded it in when it depletes. So we were kind of on that formula for a while, and then we ran into other budget concerns, and then
We've been doing one a year, haven't we?
We have, but that also isn't getting us to where we need to be. So the information that I laid on your tables is basically a 10-year layout of trying to put together a 10-year plan. And just to step back from that a little bit, back 2 years ago, the other sheets on this, I had done a fairly extensive analysis of our historical cost information, and on the back of that is kind of a summary of that. But we looked at all of our snowplow maintenance on our snow plows for a 15-year period of 2005 through 2009. All of our maintenance costs and also the truck acquisition costs for those. That represents 254 truck years of data and over 3 million miles. So that's kind of the size of the data set. Did a lot of number crunching. I got some tables here. But the bottom line is the cost-effective time is 12 years for the replacement. And coincidentally, for most county agencies, that's about where they are. So I think even without doing the analysis, people have kind of just a general sense that once you get past 12 years, your reliability starts to fall off and your maintenance starts to increase quite a bit. So based on that, the recommendations were to replace snow plows such that primary trucks used for plow routes do not exceed 12 years, and then also establish and fund an equipment CIP such that replacement of snow plows per that schedule and other major equipment such as loaders and motor graders are achieved with a relatively consistent year-to-year budget amount. So that's what we laid out, basically a plan that's what on this sheet. On the left side, we have the respective years that our snow plows, our current plow trucks that are in our inventory. Actually, we got the one that's getting replaced this year. The equipment number is on the left column, the year of the truck, and then the year that they're 12 years old. And then the right part of that table is what we laid out as a replacement schedule, from basically now through 2033. And we had 5 trucks purchased in 2013, so that's kind of a slug. We don't anticipate doing that again. However, what we laid out is basically a plan that would have 2 pieces of equipment, either 2 plow trucks or a plow, and either a motor grader or a loader every year from now through 2031 to kind of keep us on that 12-year schedule. Understand it's a extraordinarily difficult budget year, and these CIP items are, they're usually low-hanging fruit that it's easy to pluck, but just wanted to lay out this information that this is based on a plan, and there's more to it than just looking at the submittals that we requested for this year.
Yeah. So would it make me feel any better that you call it a spare? 903 is a spare.
So by necessity, we've gotten to the point where we run a couple spares. When we have a big snow event, they'll all be in service or broken. Otherwise, if we had 0 spares, we would be at a situation where, something goes wrong with the truck. Now we're, basically having less plow routes out there and others covering for that, and the public would notice that immensely. So that's, we typically have been carrying 2 spares.
During the 2 spares. And a lot of the times, just the way parts are hard to get and everything else, they'll be in a spare truck for 3 weeks before we can get a part. And their main truck would be down for sometimes 3 weeks. Sometimes we've had both spares used and another truck breaks down, and luckily within an hour or 2, we've got the other one back up on the road just to get it back out.
So this sheet is strictly the snowplow trucks, not any of the other equipment that we use.
So on here, we've got plow trucks. This is the plow trucks only.
Plow trucks
But
only.
we've also identified motor graders and loaders.
Gotcha. Okay.
Those,
So there's two replacements a year, I think is what he was telling us.
right. Two of those pieces of equipment, whether it's a plow truck or a loader or a motor grader, that's what we're, laying this out. Doing that would, achieve that 12-year optimum of not running old equipment that's unreliable and actually costing us more to run.
You've got 3 motor graders on this.
We do, and that brings up a good point. I mean, we've got somewhat reduced need for those with the auto seal that we've done, and before we replace one or to continue to carry 3, that we would definitely want to have that discussion of do we need 3 or is 2 adequate?
Is it 3 because of the 3 shops? One at each shop or what?
There's been one at the other than the Winona shop, there's been one at those shops for decades. That's how we've been operating. But that should definitely get reevaluated before we just go out and replace just because that's what we have.
Is that something that we could look at outside contracting network? Those are what's a motor grader cost?
I think we have 245 in this one.
That's a loader. What's in the budget for this year is a loader after trade in. I think motor graders are ballpark similar, maybe more.
I would say probably, I would have to look, but maybe 250, 260.
After trade in?
Yes.
So
plowing snow?
Oh, yeah, we use them for plowing snow.
What is your, well, I'm curious to know what Commissioner Jacob was getting at. So are you thinking, they say they're going to replace the loader this year. Are you thinking, what did you ask about the motor grader?
I saw 3 motor graders on there, and so that's $750,000.
Okay, you're thinking of future stuff. Okay.
Well, yeah. I mean,
That's fine.
I feel like we need to stay on the 1 plow truck a year. I think that seems, and a couple of spares for backups that all makes good sense to keep our. And I've received a lot of comments from the constituents. I'm right on the county line, so I see Olmsted County, Wabasha County, and County. A lot of compliments on that. Winona County, the roads are in the best condition in the wintertime, and I want us to stay on that reputation. So I think our snow removal plow trucks, in my opinion, needs to stay on the 1 plow truck a year. I know you're still saying that gets a little bit behind, but
well, that will get us behind, and
what is it, like 1.2 would be ideal? I mean, if it was.
Everybody's working from home. They don't need to be out
I think
on the
that's
road.
the idea of having a couple
I
spares.
think that's over, Marshall.
with
Keep them at home.
with what we laid out here, I mean, 1 a year is half of that. So we're gonna be falling behind and having increased costs and decreased reliability, and it'll get worse and worse over time if we do a 1 per year a program.
But somehow I'm not following that math then, because you said roughly 12 years, right? So after 12 years, the truck is replaced.
Correct. Well, we laid out a 10-year plan here, and that, when we get to.
We're replacing 1 a year. After 12 years, we replaced them all.
But there's other pieces of equipment, and we also have.
So I'm saying that I see you've got motor grader in there 3 times. I'm saying 1 truck a year, and I question the motor grader and whether that work could be contracted to just hire a company as we need it. Maybe have one in-house motor grader. I don't know.
Well, because snow plowing needs to be done now.
Yeah.
Grading the road, if it's just grading it for surface, that could be scheduled. Unless we have a catastrophic rain or, something like that they need to be fixing washouts or something like that. I would tend to agree with Commissioner Jacob is maybe a motor grader work could be potentially a hired out contract, potentially, not sure, just an idea. But roads and bridges is a core function. When we're discussing this and then we're discussing outside agency, of course, road repair and such is going to be a higher priority of mine for my citizens. They depend on our roads.
But not necessarily, not that they aren't equally important, because I think in my mind, that they are both equally important.
Yeah, I have comments on both of them. I know when we delay the implementation schedule, the costs go up. Two of the pieces of information you've supplied, which have been very helpful, the gas pump, if it fails, then we're paying market prices at the, at a commercial pump, which would not be advantageous. And the second point that you pointed out was that by not repaving the parking lot, it increases our liability to tripping. And so, either of those are negative consequences and could potentially cost more money, not even getting into the boiler and those kinds of discussions. So I know it's really tricky to delay capital purchases, and I would like to see us stay on some kind of a schedule. Regarding the other expenses, the outside agency expenses, I think it's a time to look at the amounts that they're requesting, but also to consider the variety of services that they are providing to us and what the costs would be if we do not provide those services, either in terms of quality of life for our citizens or in terms of actual expenses. I'm thinking of victim services and some of the services that we contract with the Advocacy Center for. So, overall, we have consistently been in the high 80s, 84th, 85th, whatever, out of our 87 counties regarding our levy amounts. And that's been consistent. So it's obvious we've been very cautious with the taxpayer dollars. It's difficult for me to see a 0% this year. But on the other hand, I do not like, jumps. So in terms of being realistic about our needs and our costs, I think we have to face the fact that we need a levy in line with our previous years, but also reflective of the special circumstances that we're facing this year. And that if we go a bit higher this year, that it's not totally out of line. And, it's likely to come back the following year because we have some plans for some of the other options, one being the optional sales tax. And I understand that's not a given, it's a referendum and we would have to do our homework, but I think also after perhaps putting that on property taxes for 1 year, people might be very happy to shift that over to a sales tax. So it's a sad, way to do that, but I think the legislature and their inaction this year has forced us to take another look at our levy amount and to include some costs in there that we had not anticipated. So I hope that gives you some idea of the direction I'm sitting at. Every year we have difficult decisions. Capital improvements is one. But I would like to see us stay on some kind of a schedule for those services. Obviously, it's important to provide safe vehicles and equipment for our workers. So we're in a bind this year.
Just to follow up on the discussion of, one piece of equipment versus two, and I do get that, especially considering this year. Well, plow truck. So in this specific year, the replacing the loader, I would put as a higher priority than replacing a plow truck. If you're just gonna, those are 219 and 245,000 respectively. The loader has about $30,000 of deferred repairs right now. So if we aren't replacing it, that's kind of money we'd be sinking into it. And if we repaired it, that's not going to get reflected in the trade-in value. So that's, if just one would be funded, I would put the loader as a higher priority than the plow truck. The other piece with the gas pumps, some people sometimes say we should operate government more like business. Those are 30-year-old pumps, and there is no business around that sells gas that has equipment anywhere near that old. So anyway, they're
Are
getting.
they safe?
I know they're safe.
They've gone out this year too, so. yeah.
They're safe, but they're not. They're getting decreasing reliability, and the company that services them for us is pulling used parts off the shelf because they're no longer available.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So
I think we're past our
that's what we're
use
up
by
against,
date.
so.
I appreciate your perspective on the priority
Yeah.
too, of the loader versus the snowplow.
So when you talk about getting a better price on fuel, what kind of percent are you getting better?
When we did
Like
that
I feel like-
analysis, I want to say it was in the ballpark of 25 cents a gallon, and that's a few years old, and that's, might be different now with the goofy things that are happening with the current pricing. That's kind of a number I have in my head, but I can go back and verify that and provide that.
We could always
And that-
shop
that
at
would pay for
Hy-Vee.
itself in a hurry at that. But I was thinking it might have been close to 1 or 2 cents.
No, it's not that.
buddy.
That's,
Yeah, we could always shop at Hy-Vee and use the gas differences there.
I just looked up this morning and the last time we bought gas was last week and we paid $3.01. And I think it's $3.65 at the pump right now.
Easily, yeah.
Wow, yeah.
that's what.
Some of it is because of
That's gasoline with the taxes in it.
gasoline we don't pay the state tax, but we pay the federal tax. But that's our cost was 301 with,
State tax is what, about
Tax,
28 cents?
was it 28 or 24? I'd
Yeah,
have to look it
it's a
up.
good chunk of change.
Because then there's
But if we
the
don't pay
diesel
that-
tax too that
Sure.
we pay once we use it.
So it's worth having the system.
Mm-hmm. I see that.
Okay, the sheriff has a couple requests in here. Unfortunately, the radios, I think we had an opportunity to buy some with our ARPA money and we chose not to.
No, the state was going to fund it, and
Well,
that didn't
and
pass.
and so maybe the state will come through because this is happening across the whole state of Minnesota. All the armor radios are, again, seeing their useful life, and maybe the state will help us out there. So we could maybe hold up on something there. And then the transport van and the, wasn't there another?
The command vehicle.
Yeah. Again, I think sometimes there's funding from another agency, state agency or something to help with those type of, vehicles and situations. So I don't know that this year, if you read any of the, newspapers or listen to any of the news, I mean, the small family is going to be, very strapped, and property tax is not optional. You have to pay your property taxes. It isn't something that you can say, well, I'm going to pay that next year. You could, but it comes with a consequence. And for us to keep raising property taxes on our local citizens is just unreasonable with what's going on. And then, we just gave a whole bunch of money to, the chamber, who gratefully got it out to all our small businesses. Now our federal government is adding 80,000 IRS agents. And one of the news articles I read is they're not going after the billionaires. They're going after the small mom and pop businesses. They feel that they're not paying, and that's just wrong. So that all the signals that our constituents are getting is that, yes, we have to tighten our belts. We need to be respectful of their situations.
I have a question about the monument parking lot. I thought that was included in some state monies that we had received. Apparently it wasn't fully included. Is that the full amount to repave that lot, or
That's the estimated amount to pave that lot. So right now it's a gravel surface. The city of Winona zoning would require a lot like that to be hard surface, not to be gravel. They've granted us an exemption while the jail project's going on, just because we might use it for
Right.
staging and some things like that, so we don't beat it up. But in any event, to in good faith with the city of Winona and to comply with their zoning, that would be a requirement. But I'm not aware of any grant or anything like that would have covered that.
The other thing I have a question about is,
Pat maybe has
Pat
some-
wanted
Oh,
to answer
excuse
part
me.
of that question, I think.
We do actually have a grant, but it is not that lot. There's only 3 parcels that it pertains to. It's the parcel that the jail is.
right,
Right next to here, we're gonna be the parking lot part of it. And it's the 2 pieces of parcel right across the street. That's the part that the grants are.
Redmond's in the apartment building.
okay. Thank you for clarifying that. The other question I had is regarding the amounts of money that we're paying for rental in different, under all the different agencies. I see that was included that's included in our budget pages, but are there any other options for some of those spaces to reduce the rental costs? I'm not sure.
Or it's like if some of the stuff could come back.
Yes.
Given that when I toured the LEC where the cells are being taken out, that looks like there'd be some space there for storage.
Yes. So that's going to be discussed as part of the space evaluation.
Okay.
Great.
Kicking off.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I didn't think that came exactly under capital requests.
Cold
but-
storage with no boiler.
But as long as we were talking about parking lots, yeah, because
What temperature?
we're leasing the parking lot, which was full today.
I know.
So,
I know.
yeah, that's an indication. That's a very popular, and it's convenient for our staff and obviously, so, but as long as we're going to look at our rental options, that's what I'm after.
So, one piece when we're discussing how low tax burden is per capita, our college is greatly, they modify that, because if you take that college population out, the tax burden per capita is much higher. So we're diluting the per capita by putting in a lot of college students. So that,
For the ones that live on campus, the rest of them that live in apartments, they're paying in their rental, they're paying property tax.
Yeah, anybody being rental, they're buying things in town, obviously, spending their money, they're buying services with
that affects it.
Wi-Fi and cable and things like that. So, yeah, they're paying one way or the other.
So if I may ask more information. So as far as using reserves, it's been mentioned a couple of times. Mr. Mulvey and I have been looking at our reserves. There is a potential, again, we'll keep monitoring this, but there is potential to take $1 million to $1.5 million. Well, certainly we're not recommending that we deplete the reserves. However, it is the board's decision on what you might want to do. But just as informational, so $1 million is about 4.8% levy. That's what it equates to. Just so
Say
that
1 million.
1 million equals about 4.8% in levy.
Okay, thank you.
So if the board were to make that decision, that would be the offset to the levy. Again, there are many different things that we're working on, and we'll bring back additional information at the August 23rd meeting. We'll try and share as much as we can in advance so that you know what we're working on and what you might be able to plan for, as how are we going to get the levy to the point that we can. I do believe we have the ability to get it below 25, but I'm saying I think we're going to be under double digit. I think if we can get to 10, it's still going to be very painful. Things are going to get pushed to the future. And the board is going to need to make some very tough decisions in the future.
When you mentioned reserve, you are talking that in excess of our policy?
We have 312s, 311s, what is it,
It's 312 right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, which is as low as it can be statutorily, yeah.
And actually, if you would, right now, if you would just take it where it sits right now, we'd be below our policy, but we're going to actually be looking at reducing or enhancing expenses. So we will be within that range. And I think with Ms. Holte and myself talking about the reserves, it's something that we're thinking that we can do, but again, by doing that, I mean, it just exacerbates that down the road. And the other thing, we're not saying that can happen multiple years.
Obviously not.
So again, we will provide more information as we get a little closer to August 23rd. Also wanted to share with the board that we're working on, contracting out where it makes sense. We have to find a balance with the needs of the number of staff to the budget. I mean, we can't afford to add 7 new positions. So we have to be creative in how we're going to meet the needs. So just, we're working with management on that. We're looking at things, what can we phase out of? I know that previous Administrator Fritz talked with the board about the potential of looking at blues, the Blue Cross Blue Shield and case management. Is that something we can do? And I'm working very diligently with Director Sanis on that. So again, those are just things that we're working on to see what can we do to help get us where it's a little more palatable. I understand it's not ideal, but
So you're talking about we'd be our own insurance agent, so to speak? Is that what you're?
no, we in essence would be having a contract with another entity to handle the case management. So we wouldn't have our staff doing it. So it's just another way to still provide the service, but not us necessarily performing the service.
Yeah, and I noticed in your memo, and thank you for that information, that we've been dodging the bullet on increased healthcare costs for our employees.
2 years at least.
But it's finally caught up with us. Is that 5% increase firm or?
Yeah, is it solid?
It's solid.
Okay.
And the reason.
So it's at least that, or is it?
No, it's
That's it.
mixed. So
Okay.
when we went out for bids, we requested for 2 years that we have a set no more than increase. And actually, we were told we should have received a 37% increase, and we only got 5 because we had it set in the contract.
Yep.
Now, we are set for next, or 2024, at a max of 7%. So even if they wanted to get it, increase our premiums for 2024, the max that we can be given is 7. So that was a good thing on our behalf.
Yeah, 37% would have been
So
real
is our
ouch.
experience up?
Yes,
That's substantially?
yes.
So are they adjusting other things in the policy to make up for their 32% difference, or?
We are evaluating that. We're getting trends and the information that we can receive. We literally just received this a couple weeks ago. So
Okay.
we haven't had enough
Yeah.
time to evaluate.
And I would like to offer the best healthcare options that we can to our employees. I think that's a really valuable recruitment tool. And, we're competing for workers. And that's one thing that is involved in that recruitment. I know of some nonprofits that are now offering a $2,000 salary signing bonus. We haven't hit that yet, thank goodness. But as much as we can stay competitive really does help.
But of course, if you're talking insurance, look at what we've done, building a new jail. That insurance bill is going to increase. Have we got an idea how much that insurance is going to go up? Okay, I mean, a new building and size and everything, that part of insurance is going to expand considerably. Workman's comp, I mean.
Well, actually, that'll be about the same.
That should,
Yeah, because
because it's based on.
previously.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah, and I do want to commend the staff. I think we've done a very judicious job of workman's comp presentations, all the prevention aspects are there. So I thank you very much for that. There's not much you can do exactly, but that's a big help. I mean, accidents happen.
Well, the safety committee takes it seriously.
Oh, yeah.
And the staff members that are involved.
I've heard the jail mentioned a couple times. But you don't mention the cost that we send out of the county, every month to pay another jail. So, I mean, we're gonna keep that money in Winona County.
Well, then that should be offsetting all these expenses.
In the grand scheme of times,
Yes.
it does. I mean, it was all part of that.
It's
all part of that study,
That
but-
money's not gonna be spent and it should be covering these expenses.
Well, I think personnel costs go up every year. We know that.
But you
And-
have two offsetting things that aren't happening at the same time.
Well, are they truly offsetting? Because we have a contract with a flat fee for prisoners in Houston County, whereas when they come here, we've kind of lost some of that control.
We've gained, much in terms of, I took a tour of the jail, and the facilities are going to allow so much more participation in terms of optional programs that defer and work on that a loss for words.
Recidivism.
Recidivism, thank you.
And are those programs cost neutral, cost free?
You pay on one end or the other. So, I'd rather pay on the prevention end.
You've
And-
probably seen that presentation on what they call it, the super users, but folks who end up by getting arrested and then into a cascade of events that we pay for through the Health and Human Services.
Right, they lose their jobs, the families become dislocated and not having regular income, so they become the county costs, the cascade of expenses, not to mention the quality of life. If you're improving someone's options in terms of participating as a regular tax-paying citizen rather than someone who's continually cycling in and out of jail and mental health services and things like that, I'd rather pay on the prevention.
It's just a huge bridge in philosophies there. It becomes an entitlement that these, in order to provide those types of services and preventative measures, you have to take it from somebody else before you can give it to those people. So it's just a philosophical differences on how much do you continue to hold the taxpayer accountable for someone else's actions. So those are the people that I'm trying to defend, and that's the bridge on the board that we have to.
Well, I think
Right.
there's a tension between the viewpoints, and I think that's the way government works.
Yeah, but I mean,
That's why we're here.
when the negative actions are taken, it doesn't only impact that one individual, it impacts many people in our common good area. So,
It takes a village.
yes.
Okay. I don't know that we've adequately given you what you needed today.
I have a feel of the direction, it's just gonna be a difficult challenge.
Yep, I agree.
But I do believe that with all of the department directors and Mr. Mulvis' assistants, we'll bring forward the best that we can do. So back to the drawing board.
I appreciate all the work
Yes.
that you all are putting in to try and bring the budget into line.
Including the department heads, because they are facing things on another level. And they're facing some of the same decisions we will be facing. So I appreciate all that.
It's rather ironic, though. Here, our state government has a 9-point changes every day surplus, and we're sitting here having to figure out how not to raise our property taxes double digits.
Absolutely right. I agree with you.
So again, I don't know how to explain that philosophy to people that, you know, one entity that mandates almost everything we do at a county has huge surpluses, and we have to explain that we're raising their property taxes.
I think there was a plan at the state level, and then suddenly they adjourned. So that's.
So Pat,
But it didn't
It's a
help
big
counties
stumbling
though.
block.
They were talking about giving money back to the people, but it really didn't help
There was a whole,
counties
there was a
in
wide
our-
arrangement of
in our functions.
whatever. Okay.
What would you like to tell us?
Yeah, comment, Marcia, the-
Yeah.
The county program aid that the county gets.
Yeah.
It was, I think it was 3.184, something like that.
Right.
It was supposed to actually go up, so it went up about 236,000.
Yeah.
Actually, it went
Down.
down 81,000.
Yep.
So, I mean, just by that action, we actually lost. So we actually lost in that, and that's kind of how that number is getting to that, because there's other areas that's happening also.
Remember that, Steve.
That's another reason
Yeah.
why to continue to push for special sessions.
Yes.
That could potentially help us there too. So
Well, and even more frustrating on a year that we received all these ARPA funds. So there's that money coming in, the amount of money that's being spent on the federal, state and county level is just phenomenal. And then we're being expected or being asked to increase property taxes on top of that. The system seems as far out of sync as it's been in my 10 years by far.
thank you very much. More to come.
Yeah.
Get
Do
your
we
red-
need to,
get
we
your
need to
red pen out.
adjourn?
Get
Do
your
we need
red
to
pen out.
adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Our
Thank
clock
you.
is Stuck.
Thank you, everyone.
The second hand is doing amazing things up there.
Ding, 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 ding.
Hey, I have a donut back there.
Yeah, help yourself to a donut.
Time is stuck.
Otherwise I'll eat more.
Oh, it's moving now.
Yeah,
Stuck
but-
between the 7 and the 8, but it's
Well,
on.
actually, it's not too bad. Unless my watch is doing the same stutter.
We're off.
Not an atomic clock.
It's so much for Adams.
And this is why my horoscope said my day would be a 6.
It said that. Oh, dear. Well, I hope the rest of
Marcia,
it
there's your
maybe
book.
averages out or
That's
something.
okay. Maybe, that, can we get a copy of that, the note that was in it? Yeah, read